Good afternoon and bienvenue from AFUSA, the Federation of Alliances Françaises in the US. My name is Renee Ketchum, and as a member of the AFUSA Board of Directors, I have the distinct honor of introducing our guest today, world-renowned pianist Mark Markham, for his AFUSA presentation of dance improvisations, including the work of J.S. Bach, Maurice Ravel, Françaises, Debussy, and improvisations from the American Songbook. Pianist Markham is equally at home as a soloist, a collaborator with great singers, a chamber musician, a jazz pianist, or a vocal coach. And his interpretations have been praised by the American press alike. International career encompasses performances in North and South America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, while the artistry of his has been described as brilliant, exquisitely detailed, and in full service to the music. Born in Pensacola, Florida, Markham made his debut in 1980 as soloist with the New Orleans Symphony Orchestra, playing Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody theme of Paganini. He studied with Anne Shine at the Peabody Conservatory, where he received the Bachelor, Master, and Doctorate of Musical Arts degrees. Before graduating, he was invited to join the faculty where he taught for 10 years. In 1995, he began a 20-year partnership with the famous soprano Jessie Norman. They gave over 250 performances in 30 countries, venues such as Carnegie Hall, Vienna, Bunkakuyan in Tokyo, the Royal Festival Hall in London, Salle in Paris, the Mann Auditorium in Tel Aviv, the Baalbek Festival in Lebanon, the Ancient Theater of Epidaurus in Greece, and the Nobel Peace Prize presentation to President Jimmy Carter in Oslo. For over a decade, Mr. Markham was based in the south of France. Shortly after arriving in 1999, he was enthroned in the Brotherhood of Châteauneuf-du-Pape in recognition of his contributions. In 2016, he was invited to give a private recital in New York City for the launch of Domaine Grand Petit, the first wine ever produced in du Pape using all 13 grape varieties in the region. Dance and music are inseparable for Mark Markham. So a program which focuses on the intimacy of dance, solo, a pas de deux, or an aristocratic court dance invites the emotional exploration of this theme when combined with a French sensibility. There are no words in dance, so movement is everything through the harmony, rhythm, and melody that correspond to certain dance styles. From a pas de deux to a pavane, allemande, waltz, gavotte, polonaise, or contemporary dance, brings a fresh and modern approach, elevating their relevance in today's culture. Mark Markham's common thread of success could be defined as the ability to usher beloved works into a new age with a relentless pioneer spirit that has held true to what matters most to him in music, feeling from the heart, the mind, and the body. It is my honor to introduce Dance and Improvisations with Mark Markham. If all of you would listen just for a minute before the concert starts, Blair is here to remind us of a few details during the performance. So welcome Blair, welcome Mark, and welcome everyone from the all our AFUSA guests.
Thank you so much, Renee, and bonjour et bienvenue à tout le monde. Just a few housekeeping notes today. I'd like to remind you to please remain muted. It's going to be important, obviously, because we're not only recording, but we don't want to distract from the performer today. I will periodically drop the name of the repertoire into the comment section. So please keep an eye out there in that area from time to time if you'd like to know the names of the pieces. Also, it's there that I'm going to remind you that you are invited to donate at any point today during the performance. Any questions about the career, today's program, about Mark Markham's time residing in France, his partnership with the legendary Jessie Norman, or the current generation of stars with whom he performs, please feel free to drop those into the comment box, and I'll collect them, and we'll go through them as many as possible as time permits following the concert. Just one final reminder, the pandemic has been particularly challenging time for performing artists. who are all suffering professionally, well above the national average. In the words of Aristotle, art is catharsis. Music, art, theater, all are instruments of social health. And sadly, there's no special unemployment system in the US for performing artists and technicians, comparable to the intermittence de spectacle in France, which takes into account the irregular nature of artistic work and helps maintain a modicum of earnings. So with that, I will periodically drop into the Dropbox some information. If you would like, you can donate directly to the artist. And now, pianist Mark Markham, que le rideau s'ouvre.
much, and good afternoon, bonjour, bienvenue, bonsoir in France, Hawaii, happy breakfast. I am so happy to be here today. I'm happy that you're here today. I hear we have a great crowd to share this music of dances and improvisations. I believe it was up on the screen. Those first two pieces were the Allemande and the Courante from the second French suite of Johann Sebastian Bach. And this kind of launched an idea for me last year that why not find a whole program about dances, since dances are an important part of our lives. And it's something that we're really not doing these days. We don't know when that's going to happen again, but we can always dream. And something that I found the most intriguing about dances is that, especially now with all these period pieces we have on television, and you see this, the aristocracy, and that they are required to dance. And it was their form of communication. You weren't supposed to be seen sitting privately with someone having an intimate conversation, but it was okay that you danced. And the contact, visually, but also the way someone held your hand, and possibly what they might whisper in your ear, if you were close enough for long enough time to say something, because everything was being observed. These dances of Bach, that for me there is trying to figure out what exactly is being said during the dance, because these are not solo pieces. For dancers, they're for two people at least. So today's program, mixing dances with improvisations, and you'll find out more about the improvisational part later. Dances continued throughout the history of music, ever since, when Bach was writing his, even prior to Bach. And the dance usually began in the more folky community, but why don't we say that? There's a piece called the Passe-Pied, which was in Brittany in the 15th and 16th centuries. And it was a line dance or a circle dance. And this is how people got together and passed their time. And Claude Debussy, one of the great French composers, he decided to include this as the final movement of his piece, Suite Bergamasque. That's the next piece I'd like to play for you. Following that is a piece that Debussy wrote when he was 28 years old called the Valse Romantique. Debussy was young, he was not into his more mature style yet. So there's the great influence of Massenet, great opera composer, but the dance is definitely there. What I want you to think about during the waltz and what to listen for is that a waltz is usually in three. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But if you put two bars together, a total of 6 beats, you can divide it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and you end up with different rhythm, but you have exactly the same dance. Debussy was very good at that and changing it up, and I don't know if people could really dance to it back then. They weren't dancing to this music per se, but it does exist in all types of music. So these two pieces of Claude Debussy, the Passe-Pied from the Suite Bergamasque and the Valse Romantique. very enthusiastic, masked audience of 6 dear friends in the room with me, because the first time I was asked to do this last year, I could not imagine doing it without people in the room, because that is the whole point of music, that we communicate via this incredible music. So I am grateful to all of you. Some of you have actually put up with me this week playing some of these pieces for you. Those 2 Debussy pieces, that's the first time they'd ever been heard outside of my living room. Let's say that. I can't say that no one's ever heard them, because Lucio got to hear them a few times this week. But thank you for that. And now that they're out, we're done. So now moving on to a composer which Claude Debussy said he has the finest ear that has ever existed. And this is Claude Debussy saying this about his colleague Maurice Ravel. So that's quite the compliment coming from Mr. Debussy. And Ravel, he has a considerable amount of music, but I wouldn't say it was as prolific as some of his other colleagues. He was very particular about what he did. Everything is very well placed. Everything is well constructed, well built. And the piece that I'm going to play today, the Valse Noble et Sentimentale, these are 7 waltzes plus an epilogue. So he had this idea because, if you didn't know this, Franz Schubert wrote a series of Valse Noble and Valse Sentimentale. So Ravel was inspired by him. You'll hear in these waltzes things that are very upbeat and very outgoing, that the rhythm changes constantly. When you think this 1, 2, 3 is going along, the next thing you're in 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But the left hand is doing 1, 2, 1, 2, something in the middle is doing 1, 2, 3, and up in the top is doing something completely different. So you get to, as a pianist, you work on this stuff, and it does torture your brain sometimes, but it's just part of the job. And they're probably, I think, some of the greatest pieces Ravel ever wrote. The second waltz is a little acidic. There's a bittersweet quality to it, and you start hearing this little jazz thing in the middle of it. Ravel was not fond of rubato. He was very clear about that in his music, but there are a couple of spots in this piece, this movement, where he says that he wants rubato. And he's like, okay, fine. The third waltz, there's no metronomic indication, the speed. There's a word, modéré. What does modéré mean? If someone is modéré when they drink, they might have 1 drink. Someone else who is modéré might have 4. It can be different. That's the way life is. It's a little sad waltz in a minor key, which is a little nostalgic. We'll call it that. The fourth waltz, if you can figure out the rhythm, I'll send you a prize. It is truly something that it's like it's so ephemeral. The rhythm is in the air someplace. And the harmony, it is suggested all around you. Nothing, rarely, if ever, lands. It's like watching a very interesting insect that flies and how they're inconsistent with their patterns, like a butterfly or something. After that, we have the waltz, the fifth waltz, which is dedicated to Schubert. It's not dedicated, but Ravel said to his students and in his writing, this is to be played in the spirit of Schubert. The waltz after that is another one of these crazy things where rhythmically it's all over the place, switching back and forth. The seventh waltz is your big Viennese waltz with a section in the middle that sounds completely lost in time and space. And then the last piece, Ravel referred to it as a dream of waltzes, the epilogue, where you have this, it's a psychological game of things are traveling along and then out of nowhere, over in the side of your head, you have another thought while you're in conversation with someone else right in front of you. And life happens that way a lot. We hope it doesn't happen when we're playing the piano because we need to be in charge of what we do, but things do happen in life. And you'll hear little snippets of all of the previous waltzes that were there before. They're all they're fractured. Some of them are very clear, you'll get it immediately. Others, it's all a mystery, and after you've worked on it for a while, you understand, wow, that's where that came from. So, the Valse Noble et Sentimentale of Maurice Ravel.
If it says mute, I'm not on, right? They can't hear me. Okay, now I'm muted. Whoops.
much. Did you hear all those waltzes? Those little snippets of things? Wow, it's time for intermission. Though there's not an intermission, don't worry, Blair, I'm not leaving. I'm supposed to laugh at that point. There you go, my live audience. So, now on to another French composer, Francis Poulenc, who wrote a series of improvisations. There are 15 of them. And then there's another extra called a valse improvisation. I would like to play 4 of the regular improvisations, number 12, 13, 14, and 15. Number 12 is dedicated to Schubert, which you will understand immediately when you hear it. Though the very beginning, since Monsieur Poulenc was such a religious person, very much involved in his Catholicism, the beginning of it sounds like a cantor in a Catholic church where the echo is so crazy that it doesn't go away for 12 seconds. And he asked for to put the pedal down to play with it that way, so it sounds in that way. Then the Schubert waltz starts, and he uses the word pimpant, which I had to look up because I had never heard that word before, and it's rather dandy and not correct is not the word, but stylish. And that's what he's looking for in this piece, which is written at a ridiculously quick tempo, which is typical Poulenc, though he wants you to have the utmost charm. So imagine you're carrying trays of food and you're supposed to run around the room as fast as you can and not drop anything. That's pretty much what it feels like when you're playing it. The second piece is pretty much typical Poulenc and its great lyricism. The third piece is the same, though there is influence of Richard Strauss at the end from his opera Ariadne auf Naxos. See if you hear that. And then the fourth one is the homage to Edith Piaf. And you definitely hear the great singer. But what is so unusual with this piece with Poulenc is that Poulenc, who was incredibly strict, worse than his other composers, about this is the time, this is the way it is, like the preceding piece before number 14, it says the same tempo from beginning to end, and he puts the metronome marking, and you're not to waver. And in any place in the piece where he thinks you might take time, he puts without rubato. Not please, but just sans rubato to tell you, don't take any time, do not make this romantic. So, but in this piece for Edith Piaf, it is filled with rubato, with great nuance, he asked for it to be capricious, but also incredibly quick. A lot of people like to play it very slowly, which is completely against Poulenc. It is a fast piece, but there's all of this incredible stop and start that goes on, which is incredibly powerful. The last piece is the valse improvisation, and this will round out our classical program for today on the name of Bach, B-A-C-H, which is B-A-C-H. H is B natural, and B is B flat. So you'll hear da-dam-ba-bam over and over again throughout the piece in different registers, in different keys, and he builds an entire piece on that. What is interesting there is that he puts a tempo marking at the beginning, and then says, start a little bit under the tempo, but get faster and faster the whole time you're playing. So by the end, it's turned into this incredible, it's like a carnival. It's a crazy time. It starts off rather charming, but then it just keeps rolling down the hill until it finishes. So here we have 4 improvisations plus the valse improvisation on the name of Bach. Enjoy. Thank you very much. I forgot to tell you that piece was dedicated to Vladimir Horowitz, and I don't know if he ever played it. I don't know of any recording of it or performance that was recorded. So, now on to the improvisation part of the program. Now that you've heard those improvisations, now I'm going to go to the American Songbook. And with what we've been through in the last 11 months, I could be a little stretch that more if I wanted to, but I'm not today. 11 months and how strange our lives are, how different our lives are. To try to keep a sense of normalcy is really, really tricky. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. My friends who are here today, this is pretty much my bubble. All except for great David Sexton, who's our video sound guy. Everyone's wearing a mask. We're all here sharing music together. Yes, it's different. Is it hard? It's a little awkward that my bedroom, my bathroom, my dressing room, my room service, my maid, the piano tuner, everybody's all in the same 800 square feet. It's a little confusing because we don't get to travel. But we have to be grateful for what we have. And I'm very grateful that I can sit here every day when they say lockdown. I think, well, that's been pretty much 75% of my life for as long as I can remember, that I spend hours a day alone. So it's great. But to be able to share it, to be very honest, today feels like I was shot out of a cannon. I'm used to playing in my apartment for myself all the time, but all of a sudden to know that there are people actually listening who are craving for music, and that means a lot, that we share this love of this amazing art form. So in trying to figure out what I was going to play at the end of this program, I had some crazy ideas. And most of the time I decide I'm not going to go with my crazy idea, but I figure, you know what? It fits with Rona time, as they call it here in Baltimore. So I'm going to stick with it's an idea. There's nothing concrete about it. There's nothing that's in stone. There's kind of a little plan. It's kind of like saying, well, yeah, they live in Cockeysville. That's outside of Baltimore. I'll figure out how to get there later. That's pretty much where I am right now with this. So there are going to be a group of songs put together. You will definitely know when it's over. How's that? You don't have to worry. And I choose songs that I do like this, that I improv, because you know that I work a lot with singers, that for me, the words are everything. It can be great music, but if the words are not great, then the song is not going to make it. The words have to be there, and then you find an amazing composer who gets inside of those words and takes them other places, and then allows artists to come in and take them even other places. And then you have a great song. So I play by the words, and I'm just going to tell you today, try to follow. Okay? Follow.
just at the end.
Thank you very much. I have one other little thing I want to do right now. Well, you know, improvisation type thing. We can... A waltz of Francis Poulenc, Les Chemins de l'Amour.
My picture up.
I hear there might be questions and answers. Is that true?
Yes, Mark, do we have time for a few questions? I've pulled out 3 that came in. So The first from Alliance Française Cincinnati, it's kind of similar to the second, but the first is, was there room for improvisations in your performances with Jesse Norman?
Oh, that all started, he was going to sing in the Temple of Dendur at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and she put Summertime on the program. And I thought, well, that's interesting choice after you're singing Aida before that. And so I got to her house for the rehearsal, and I said, you didn't say what key you're singing this in. Because she normally puts, a song of Brahms, what key it's in, whatever. And this time she said, I don't know. I said, really? Oh, okay. Well, why don't you just start singing then, and I'll figure out where we end up. And she started singing, and her first note, and that put us in C sharp minor. And that's where we were, and that's where the song stayed for the next 10 years, but it was different every time. I could be, if we were in Germany in a hall of 2,000 Germans, and we've done a whole classical program, and Summertime comes up at the end, I could play an introduction and improvise on Johannes Brahms' Lullaby, da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, and mix that in so that they didn't realize what was happening, and then somehow weave it into Summertime, and she would come in and they would go hysterical. And that was truly improvisation. So I think there are a few of those online someplace. But yes, there was improvisation for sure.
And one more improvisation is the mot du jour, because the next question from Francois Weaver is, how can you, or how can one write an improvisation? Aren't improvisations supposed to be spontaneous?
I think, since we're not in the minds of these composers when they write these things, to them it's more of a, come on, they're very disciplined in their craft already. So if they're going to improvise, they have their tools, like I have my hands, I know my harmony, I have to figure out how I'm going to get from one thing to the other. And perhaps they did write these things down quickly, but I think it's more in the spirit of an improvisation, and that it's the performer's responsibility to make it feel like that this has just kind of been invented, which is really what all music should be about. That I'm not over here doing something for you, but I'm still interpreting something even as well as I know it. If I were to, read the same passage from a book for you every week, it's, if you have children, you've learned. You have a 2-year-old, and if you read that page the same way the next time, they'll pretty much tell you about it. If you think you're going to cut corners and not read one of the lines, they will let you know that you forgot that line. So, our spirit of renewal constantly, I think, is what this is all about. That I take the songs that I took there, we have Whitney Houston, and then we go back to the Fantastics, and then we go to the Wizard of Oz. I don't know how that happened. I don't take responsibility. I don't know what I ate or drank, but that's what came out. So.
And another question: where in France did you live? Where in the south of France were you living, and for how long?
I lived in the Luberon Valley. First in the village of Gordes, and then the village of Cabrières d'Avignon. About 35 minutes from Avignon.
And I think our last question, and many people will want to know this, is how can they hear more of you? How can I hear more of Mark, purchase recordings, see him play? And this is from Virginia Nelson.
The next performance, believe it or not, now that I'm into this routine of doing these things, on February the 14th, on Valentine's Day, which is another Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. I need my team here. Everybody, can you sign up for that? So I have my public. I am doing a program called My Songs Without Words. I've worked so much with singers, but I do like to play, the piano alone. And so I went through all this repertoire and found 12 different composers, from Bach, arranged by Busoni, Bartók, Montpu, Mendelssohn, Chopin, Brahms, Debussy, Scriabin, Janáček, Schubert, Poulenc, and Schumann, arranged by Liszt. That's the chunk of the program, and then I'll be doing my own improvisations also at the end of that. And pretty much all these songs, these pieces, it's Valentine's Day, I don't want to be too, traditional about it. You can call them love songs. Some of them are love songs, but love is so many different things and can be between so many different things. So all these songs, all these pieces work for that. That's the first time you can hear me. I'll be playing the full program of dances and improvisations on It will be aired March 21st, I believe, through Series Community Concerts here in Baltimore. And I'm recording that at the beginning of March. What else? There are things on YouTube. There are albums out there, but because of the way this business is now, albums have pretty much disappeared. Jesse Norman and I did a whole album, two CDs, called Roots, My Life, My Song, which has tons of all this popular music, but going back to the spiritual and African tribal music that she wove through her entire musical career and made a program out of that, that was 10 years ago. So that's a possibility. And hopefully when this pandemic finishes, I will be able to go outside and play on another piano someday. That would be nice. So.
Oh, I think that's all the time we have for questions, but I just will leave you with one or two comments that I think all of us are feeling, and that's what a privilege it was to hear you today, and from Neil Castillo, and I know that's how we're all feeling. And Mike Lovett said, your playing transports us away from the lockdown, and I thought that couldn't be more perfect to say at the end of today. It really transports us out of this pandemic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And we invite everybody to take themselves off mute to thank Mark. So if we'd like to give him a round of applause.
Merci.
Bravo!
Oh, excellent.
Remarkable, Mark.
Great job.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Au revoir.
Thank you.
Merci Marc, merci infiniment.
Merci.
Thank you, Mark. À la prochaine.
Thank you.
Bonne soirée.
Thank you. Au 14 février. Merci beaucoup.
Merci Marc, merci.